Do this every day and you'll look younger for much longer. You want to know the real secret to looking younger after 60? It's not expensive creams. It's not 10-step routines. And no, it's not pretending you're still 40. It's this. What you do every day adds up. The choices you make, the company you keep, the way you move through your mornings. Those things shape your face, your body, and even your spirit. I've seen folks in their 70s who move like they're 50, and others in their 50s who feel like they're already fading. It's not luck. It's not magic. It's habits. So today, I want to share 9 small things you can start doing every day. Things that not only keep you feeling younger, but looking it too. And if this kind of wisdom matters to you, you're in the right place. This is Nonstop Wisdom, where we talk about aging, purpose, and truth without shame. If you haven't already, subscribe, and let's grow better, not just older. 1. Sleep like it matters, because restoration is the root of renewal. You ever notice how kids can fall asleep anywhere and wake up looking brand new? Hair wild, pillow creases on their cheeks, but still, they glow. Somewhere along the way, we forget that sleep isn't a luxury. It's maintenance. It's where the body resets, the skin repairs, and the brain files away everything it's been carrying. But when you're older, sleep changes. It gets lighter, shorter, interrupted, and most people just accept it. I guess that's what happens after 60, they say. But here's the thing. Just because sleep gets harder doesn't mean it's less important. In fact, it becomes more essential. Because without good sleep, every other effort you make, eating better, exercising, even staying sharp, gets sabotaged. I once met a woman in her 70s who looked like she had time on her side. Not in a flashy way. No heavy makeup. No cosmetic tricks. Just this natural glow, like her body still knew how to exhale. I asked her what her secret was. She smiled and said, "I treat sleep like my best medicine. Always have." And she meant it. She had a ritual, sacred and slow. At 8 p.m., the house dimmed. Soft lamps, a warm cup of chamomile, jazz humming low from the kitchen. No late-night news to stir the nerves. No reheated leftovers to disrupt digestion. No screens blinking into her eyes like strobe lights. She didn't just fall asleep. She invited rest in, like an old friend. First came a bath, lavender-scented. Then her favorite book, one she'd read 10 times. Finally, she slipped into a room so quiet it felt like the world had taken a deep breath. And she slept. Really slept. None of that tossing and turning, checking the clock at 3 a.m. Just deep, healing sleep. By morning, her skin looked rested. Her eyes were bright. Even her mood carried a softness most people lose to time. She said, "I think people forget. You wear your sleep on your face." And I've never forgotten that. Now here's what you can do. Make sleep a non-negotiable. Go to bed and wake up around the same time, even on weekends. Turn off the noise. No doom scrolling or drama shows right before bed. Let your nervous system quiet down. Try a power down hour. 1 hour before sleep. No bright lights, no caffeine, no conflict. Just stillness. And don't be afraid of naps. A short nap, 20 minutes, isn't laziness. It's fuel. Because when you sleep well, you don't just feel better. You look it, too. Feed your body like you respect it. Less sugar, more color, more intention. That woman I told you about, the one who treated sleep like medicine, she said something else that stuck with me. I don't eat like I'm trying to survive. I eat like I'm trying to last. And that hit different. because most people think aging is about what you can no longer do. No more running, no more late nights, no more spicy food. That kind of thinking shrinks your world. But what if it's not about the losses? What if aging is really about the choices you still get to make? The ones that say, I'm still here, and I still care about me. And of all those choices, food might be the loudest one. You make it 3 times a day, sometimes more. It's the first thing you reach for in the morning, the last thing that touches your body before bed. And whether you realize it or not, your plate is a reflection of your priorities. Now don't worry, I'm not here to tell you to eat kale or sip beet smoothies. That's not how we talk here. But here's the honest truth. As you age, your body speaks up. And if you've been ignoring it, you'll start to hear it whisper in new ways. A heavy meal? It doesn't just slow you down, it lingers. Too much sugar? You'll see it in your skin, your joints, your moods. No color on your plate? You'll feel it in your energy, your clarity, even your sleep. I once heard a doctor say, if your plate is beige, your life probably feels beige too. And I'll be honest, he wasn't being dramatic. He was being right. Because there's a difference between being full and being nourished. One just gets you through the day. The other helps you show up for it with vitality, strength, and focus. So if you're feeling tired, foggy, weighed down, before you go searching for some expensive fix, take a look at your fork, because the way you feed your body is the way you're telling it to keep going. And you still have places to go. What you can do. Eat with intention, not just habit. Don't just default to the same old toast or processed meals. Ask, what does my body need today? Add more color. Fruits, vegetables, berries, greens. These aren't just healthy, they're life-giving. Keep it simple. You don't need a gourmet plan. Just avoid food that comes in boxes with ingredients you can't pronounce. And remember, less isn't punishment, it's preservation. You don't need to eat less to look younger. You need to eat smarter to feel younger. Because when your body feels respected, it responds. 3. Move. Enjoy, not just obligation. Your body wasn't made to rust, it was made to rejoice. So if food is how you speak to your body, then movement, that's how you listen to it. And not just in the gym or on some rigid schedule, but in the way you stretch when you wake up, the way you dance when no one's watching, the way you walk, not to burn calories, but to clear your head. I've met too many people who treat movement like punishment. I ate too much, so I have to walk it off. I'm getting older, so I better start exercising. That mindset turns movement into a chore. And when something feels like a chore, you'll find any reason to avoid it. But your body doesn't need punishment. It needs participation. It needs to know you're still in there, still willing to show up, still willing to take up space. One man told me he started dancing again in his 60s. Not professionally, not in public, just in his living room on Saturday mornings, barefoot and free. He said he'd put on old records, music from when he was 20, 25. Back when he thought life had endless chapters. He'd sway by the window, spin near the couch, stretch his arms like he was greeting the sunlight. Sometimes he cried while dancing. Sometimes he laughed, but always he moved. And when I asked him why he started again, he paused and said, "Because when I move with joy, my body forgives me for all the years I didn't." That line sat heavy in my chest, because he wasn't just talking about exercise. He was talking about reconnecting about reclaiming a part of himself that got buried under decades of work, responsibility, and waiting for the right time. He told me he used to treat his body like a machine. Push it, punish it, ignore it. Only cared when it broke down. But movement taught him something new. That his body wasn't just a tool. It was a partner. And joy was the language it understood best. Now, he still dances. Every Saturday. Not to get in shape. But to remember he's alive. And when you move from that place, not guilt, not fear, not obligation, but gratitude, your body softens, your joints loosen, and you start aging less like a machine and more like a song. What you can do, find one form of movement that makes you feel alive. Walking, stretching, dancing, gardening, swimming. If it makes you smile, even just a little, it counts. Drop the no pain, no gain mindset. Movement isn't a punishment. It's a privilege. Celebrate small wins. 5 minutes today is more than none yesterday. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Just start. Because the goal isn't six-pack abs or running marathons. It's waking up with less stiffness, more breath in your lungs, and a body that says, "Thank you for remembering me." 4. Think something new. Every day. Reading, puzzles, writing, anything that keeps the mind open. You can feed your body. You can move it with joy. But if you stop feeding your mind, you'll feel it. Not all at once, but slowly. The spark gets dimmer. The curiosity fades. The world feels smaller. And that's not age. That's neglect of the one part of you that never stops craving growth. I met a 92-year-old retired teacher who still kept a spiral-bound notebook by her window. The cover was worn soft from years of use, pages curling at the edges, pen always tucked inside like a trusted companion. Every morning, before coffee, before checking the weather, before the rest of the world came rushing in, she sat by that window and wrote one new thing she had learned the day before. A quote from a book. A new word from the crossword. Something a neighbor mentioned about history. Even a headline that made her curious, even if it scared her. She said it didn't need to be profound. Just something that made her brain say, that's interesting. And then she looked at me with those sharp, thoughtful eyes, the kind that had graded 1,000 essays, and said, "It's not about remembering everything. It's about reminding my mind that I'm still alive." And I never forgot that moment, because she wasn't doing it to fight off memory loss. She wasn't trying to outsmart aging. She was doing it because she still wanted to belong to the world, to stay connected to more than just her memories, to feel like a participant, not just an observer. She told me, there's still more to know, still more to wonder about. And when I stop being curious, that's when I know I'm really old. That notebook wasn't just paper and ink. It was proof that her mind was still hungry, that her spirit hadn't settled, that even at 92, she still believed in becoming. And maybe that's what aging well really looks like. Not holding on to the past, but waking up each day with a small, quiet fire that says, I still want to grow. What you can do. Read something new every day. A quote, a paragraph, a page. Nourish your mind like you do your meals. Write, even if no one reads it. Your thoughts matter, and writing makes them real. Talk to someone who thinks differently than you. Not to debate, but to understand. That's how minds stay open. Ask more questions, even simple ones. Why is the sky that color today? What if I tried this differently? Because wisdom doesn't come from years alone. It comes from what you do with those years. And your mind, it's still hungry. 5. Stay connected to people who see you. Loneliness ages you faster than time ever could. By now you've heard it. Movement helps the body, learning feeds the mind. But nothing nourishes the soul like being seen. Not just being around people, but being truly known. Because here's the truth. Loneliness doesn't always look like isolation. Sometimes it looks like sitting in a full room and still feeling invisible. I once spoke with a man in his late 80s. Sharp mind, quick humor. The kind of laugh that made you feel warmer just being near him. He had this way of looking at you, really looking, like every word you said deserved a front row seat. He'd lived through wars, raised a family, survived more winters than most of us have birthdays. But when I asked him, what's been the hardest part of getting older? He didn't mention the pain in his knees, or the stack of pills lined up neatly next to his coffee mug, or the way his days moved slower than they used to. He just looked out the window, exhaled, and said, "You get to a point where people stop asking you what you think. They just tell you what to do." That sentence hit me like a cold wind. He wasn't bitter, just tired. Tired of being treated like a checklist. Tired of nodding through conversations that felt more like instructions than connections. Tired of being in the room, but never really in the room. He told me he missed real conversations. The kind where you lose track of time. Where you don't have to talk about your health or your prescriptions or what hurts today. Where someone looks at you and asks, "What's on your mind?" Not to fix you. Not out of obligation. But because they genuinely want to know. He leaned back in his chair and said something I'll never forget. "I don't want attention. I want connection. Someone to remind me I still matter. And that stays with you. Because here's the part no one tells you. We spend so much of life protecting our body, our appearance, our memory. But we don't always protect our relationships. We assume people know how we feel. We let old friendships drift. Not because we don't care, but because life got busy. We stop reaching out. We tell ourselves, they haven't called either. So we both just keep not calling. And over time, the silence between people who once meant the world to each other grows heavier. Not loud, not angry, just heavy. Until one day we're surrounded by people, nurses, neighbors, even family, and still feel completely unseen. And the worst part, we start believing that's just how it is. That invisibility is part of aging. That being talked at instead of talked to is normal. But it doesn't have to be. Because connection isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. And it might be the most powerful anti-aging tool we have. Not creams, not supplements, but someone looking you in the eye and saying, "Tell me more." That's what keeps a person alive inside. The longer we wait to connect, the quieter life becomes. What you can do. Call someone first. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Just dial. Let people see the real you. Messy, wise, silly, tender. That's the version they'll remember. Ask better questions. How's your heart? What made you smile today? What's something you're hoping for? Rebuild old bridges, even if it's awkward at first. A short note. A simple check-in. That's all it takes to reopen the door. Because aging isn't just about adding years. It's about staying alive inside them. And people, they're the mirrors that remind you, you're still here. You're still seen. You still matter. 6. Respect your body. It's been carrying you for decades. There's a myth people carry into their 60s, 70s, and beyond. That aging is about loss, of energy, of beauty, of strength. But the truth? Aging is just the world finally reflecting how well or how poorly you've treated your body all these years. Because your body, it remembers everything. The all-nighters you pulled, the meals you skipped or rushed, the stress you buried instead of released, the years of saying, "I'll rest when there's time," even when your joints begged you to stop. When you're young, your body bounces back. You stay up late, eat whatever's fast, ignore the signals, and somehow it keeps going. But eventually it starts whispering. A little stiffness in the morning, a bit more fatigue at the end of the day, a prescription here, a test result there. And if you keep ignoring those whispers, they turn into screams. I once met a man in his 70s who said something that stuck with me. I treated my car better than I treated myself. Changed the oil, rotated the tires, took it in for tune-ups. But me? I just kept running until I broke down. That sentence hit hard. Because he wasn't being dramatic. He was being honest. He told me he spent years thinking health was about weight or vanity. But now he knew the truth. Health is about respect. Respecting your knees when they ask you to stretch. Respecting your heart when it asks for less salt and more sleep. Respecting your breath when it quickens. Not ignoring it until it stops. What you can do. Start treating your body like a friend, not a machine. Would you ignore a friend's cry for help? Then don't ignore your own signals. Choose one small thing today. A walk instead of the couch. A glass of water instead of soda. A stretch instead of scrolling. Make peace with your body, not war. It's not your enemy. It's the home that's carried your soul for decades. Because aging with dignity doesn't mean defying time. It means honoring what time has given you. And your body, wrinkles, scars, stretch marks, and all deserves nothing less than your full attention, your full care, and your full respect. 7. Look in the mirror and choose to see life, not loss. Aging plays a cruel trick if you let it. It slowly shifts your focus from who you are to what you've lost. You stop seeing your spark. You start noticing the spots, the sag, the gray, the stiffness, the slowness. And suddenly, the mirror becomes a place of mourning. But it doesn't have to be. I once visited a woman in her late 80s. She lived alone in a little sun-filled house with ivy creeping up the back porch and wind chimes that sang even when the breeze was shy. Her laugh lines ran deep, like soft valleys carved by decades of joy. Her silver curls framed her face like wisdom worn proudly, and her wardrobe, full of vibrant scarves, bold reds, wild purples, sunflower yellows. She said she wore color to remind the world I haven't faded. But it was what she did every morning that stayed with me. She stood in front of her mirror, always the same one in the corner of her room with the antique frame, and spoke 3 simple lines. I'm still here. I'm still becoming. Let's live today. At first, she told me, it felt silly. Just a way to brighten the quiet. A joke between her and the reflection that didn't look like her younger self anymore. But over time, something changed. She started believing it. Not because the lines on her face disappeared. Not because time rewound itself. But because she realized something the world never taught her. That her worth didn't shrink with age. It deepened. That beauty didn't fade. It just changed shape. And that her mirror wasn't a courtroom for lost youth. It was a place of remembrance. She said, "Every wrinkle is something I survived. A heartbreak, a season, a child I raised, a night I didn't think I'd get through. Why would I try to erase that? That sentence? It cracked something open in me. Because most people, the moment they start to age visibly, begin the war. They buy the creams. They try to reverse the clock. They treat their body like an error to be fixed. But she, this woman in her bold scarf and steady hands, had made peace. She told me, I used to think the mirror was my enemy. Now it's my witness. And that right there, that's the shift most people never make. Because we've been taught that aging is something to hide, to apologize for, to manage, or slow down. We get sold words like anti-aging as if growing older is a disease, as if years lived are something shameful. But wisdom says otherwise. Wisdom whispers, your age isn't a problem, it's your proof. Your story is not over. It's evolving. You're not fading. You are still forming. You're not less of anything with time. You're more real, more layered, more earned. And your mirror, it shouldn't be a place where your joy goes to die. It should be a sacred space where you look yourself in the eye and say, I'm still here. I still have time. And I still get to decide who I become next. And if you start saying it out loud like she did, maybe, just maybe, you'll start believing it too. What you can do. Say something kind to yourself in the mirror every morning. Not for vanity, for vitality. Stop chasing the past. Start honoring your present. You're not going backward, and you don't need to. 8. Let go of what you can't carry anymore. There's a weight that doesn't show up on the scale. You can't see it in the mirror. Doctors don't test for it, but it's there. Old guilt, old shame, old versions of yourself you still feel bad about. Memories you replay, thinking if you go over them enough times, maybe you'll rewrite them. But here's the truth no one tells you. Carrying what you can't change doesn't make you wise. Letting go does. I once spoke with a man in his early 70s who carried something in his wallet that he hadn't shown anyone in years. It was a folded, creased letter, yellowing at the edges. The ink faded, the paper soft, like something that had been read 100 times. He said he wrote it in his 40s, after his first marriage ended. It was a letter of apology. Not one he ever sent. Just something he wrote late one night when the house was too quiet and the guilt was too loud. It was my way of owning it, he told me, of not pretending I didn't mess up. I asked him how often he looked at it. He didn't hesitate. Every day, he said, and every day I feel like I'm still failing. That sentence knocked the wind out of me, because here's the thing. This man had rebuilt his life. He remarried. He reconnected with his kids. He volunteered at a local food pantry. He played chess every Wednesday at the park. By all accounts, he had made peace on the outside. But inside, he was still 42, still reliving the moment everything fell apart, still dragging that version of himself around like a ghost with his name on it. That's when I realized something that I've seen over and over again. So many people age, but they never grow past the moment that broke them. They carry their regrets like invisible baggage, emotional scar tissue layered over years of silence, smiles that never quite reached the eyes, laughter that felt just a little too rehearsed. They move forward, but only on the calendar. In their heart, they're still trapped in that fight, that loss, that decision, that silence. And here's the worst part. They start to believe that carrying it forever is the price they have to pay to prove they've changed. But that's not healing. That's punishment. And the truth is, you don't have to keep hurting to prove you've learned. Real healing, it begins The moment you can look at that old version of yourself and with gentleness say, "You didn't know better yet. You were hurting too. And even if you should have done differently, you were doing the best you could with what you knew then." That doesn't mean the damage disappears. It doesn't undo what was done, but it releases the grip. Because you can't build peace in the present if you're still letting a past version of yourself hold the hammer. You can't look forward if every glance in the mirror reminds you of the person you used to be. And you can't fully feel joy today if your soul is still locked in a room you left 30 years ago. So yes, keep the lessons. Honor the growth. But for heaven's sake, let go of the self-punishment. You don't have to keep bleeding just because the wound used to be yours. What you can do: name what you're still carrying. A mistake, a betrayal, a version of yourself you've judged for too long. Ask, is this helping me live better today? If not, it may be time to lay it down. Write it down, burn it, pray over it, share it, not to forget it, but to finally forgive it. Because aging is not just about collecting years. It's about releasing what no longer belongs to you. You are not your worst day. You are not your old choices. You are not unfinished business. You are still here. And you deserve to live like someone who's free. 9. Lower your stress before it lowers you. You want to know something wild? Aging isn't just about your knees, your eyesight, or your wrinkles. It starts at the cellular level. And one of the biggest triggers? Stress. Not the kind that shows up once a year. I'm talking about the kind that hums in the background. The kind you carry like a second skin. The constant tension in your jaw. The never-ending to-do list in your head. The late-night worries about things you can't control. I once met a widow who lost her husband after 50 years of marriage. And do you know what she told me? Grief didn't age me as much as pretending I was okay all the time. She had kept going, kept smiling, kept making tea and answering phone calls like nothing had changed. But inside, she was unraveling. And over time, it showed. Not in her spirit, but in her body. Because stress doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your skin, your immune system, your heart, even your telomeres. Those little protective caps on your DNA that shorten faster when you're under constant pressure. So yes, eating well matters. So does movement, sleep, vitamins. But if you're doing all of that while still holding your breath, emotionally, it's like watering a plant with the lid still on the bottle. What you can do: breathe like it matters, because it does. Just 5 slow breaths can reset your nervous system. Create a ritual to release tension. Journal, meditate, pray. Take a 10-minute walk without your phone. Sit in silence. Light a candle. Let your heart exhale. Talk to someone. Cry if you need to. You're not weak for feeling things. You're wise for releasing them. Because at the end of the day, aging gracefully isn't about having no stress. It's about not letting it live rent-free in your soul. And if you can master this, you won't just look younger. You'll feel lighter. Let's go over those 9 habits real quick, not as pressure, not as a checklist, but as small, sacred reminders of how you can honor your body, your mind, and your soul every single day. Treat sleep like medicine, because rest is repair. Feed your body with respect. Food is a daily choice, and your body is listening. Move with joy. Dance, stretch, walk. Remind your body it's still alive. Think something new every day. Keep your mind curious, not just occupied. Protect your relationships, because connection is medicine too. Get sunlight on your skin. Vitamin D. Fresh air. Real light. Speak kindly to the mirror. Your age is your evidence, not your flaw. Let go of old shame. You're not meant to carry every past version of yourself. Lower your stress before it lowers you. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself be. And here's what I hope you remember. You don't stay young by holding on to the past. You stay young by choosing to stay alive in the present. You don't have to master all 9. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to start where you are. Because this isn't about reversing time. It's about redeeming it. And the beautiful part, you still have some. Which of these 9 habits spoke to you the most today? Leave a comment. I read every single one. And you never know who might feel less alone because of your words. If this video stirred something in you, give it a thumbs up. And if you know someone who deserves to feel better in their body and their spirit, send this to them. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your moment. Here at Nonstop Wisdom, we don't chase youth. We honor life. And every week, we're telling stories that remind you you're not too late, you're not too old, and your story's not finished yet. So hit that button. We've got more truth to share and more life to live together.